Hi, everyone out there. I hope you're still having a great week, making the best of it. I know depending on what day it is, it was either going to be warm like it was on Monday, or we have some colder days ahead. I can't believe it. We're in May already. Well, let's continue in our study. We're going to be finishing up our story today, Moosling the Hero. I sure have enjoyed the book. I hope you have too. And we're going to continue focusing on character traits. Remember, if they're internal, see that in word, that means like on the inside. A person could be kind, gentle, selfless, many things, right? But external means outside. Like there's a picture of her, little girl, and she has blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin. Okay, so now before we begin reading, students, remember what we do? We get back into our book. And a way to get back in our book is to think about the main events that happen in the story. Like we know in the beginning, I remember that Moosling heard someone screaming for help. And then she saw baby birds that had fallen into the river, and she was courageous. She just jumped into that river as fast as she could. And remember, she kept her head underneath, but the birds with the nest on top of her head so they wouldn't drown. And she had to be very careful because they tried to get the nest off of her. Remember that? And they couldn't. They tried with all their might, didn't they? So because they decided the babies were too little to leave the nest. So they knew that Moosling was going to have the nest on top of his head all the time. But he was so careful. He made sure that he didn't jump or run that might hurt the little babies. He didn't swim. He made sure that if it was raining or cold, right, that he would keep them out of the sun or the heat. And he also made sure he was staying still and quiet when the baby birds were sleeping. Wow, is he so thoughtful? So then we found out that at last it was time for the baby birds to leave the nest, wasn't it? Woo! Finally, right? Now let's read on to find out what happens after that. Keep your eyes on the text and read along with me. As soon as the birds were gone, Moosling called to his friends. Together they tugged and pushed and tugged some more. At last they got the nest off his head. Then Moosling ran and jumped. He had a good long swim. Then he shook the water off and he ran and jumped some more. Goodness. It's nice to be a hero, Moosling said, but it is more fun just to be a mouse. I like the ending of that story. Can you think of at least two more character traits that we read about today? Let's see if we can call them out. Here's our character web, and we were identifying traits in the inside or on the outside that would describe Moosling. And we learned that he was helpful, absolutely, and very courageous by jumping in that water and swimming underneath. But he was worried because he was concerned about how the baby birds were going to be. And he was very careful with them to be sure that they would stay safe and healthy. Very unselfish. He didn't think about himself a bit. And heroic. He was a hero. They even called him a hero. So there's two more character traits. Can you think of any? When I looked on page 14 that we read today, it says, as soon as the birds were gone, Moosling called to his friends. What do you have to be? What character trait do you have to have friends? If you said friendly, you're absolutely right. And Moosling was definitely friendly, even to strangers that needed her help. And then on the last page, it says, it's nice to be a hero, Moosling said, but it is more fun just to be a moose. You know, someone that doesn't always have to have things going their way or some great big party happening or someone buying them something. When you're not having to do all that and you're just fine with you, what are you? You are joyful. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, Moosling sure was joyful throughout the whole story, wasn't he? Even when things were going great and when things weren't going so great. So we can learn a lot probably from Moosling, right? So, boys and girls, you have already practiced using this organizer. What I want you today is I want you to, on a piece of paper, write down our character name. There it is right there, Moosling. And then I want you to look at the two character traits that we studied today that Moosling had. He was friendly and he was joyful. And then I want you to choose one or the other, write that down, and then tell me the evidence from the text. We only read 3 pages today, so that shouldn't be too hard. But boys and girls, when you're in your real books, your real stories that you're reading on your own, take time to think of a character that's in your story, whether it be a person or an animal, and start to develop the character traits based upon what they're doing, because it'll really add to your understanding of the story. Hope to see you next time. And remember, I'm always ready to read a text or get a letter in the post office, and I'll be sure to write you back.